The scream comes first, then you see it. A rat cutting straight across your kitchen floor in broad daylight, while your wife is standing on a chair pointing at it. That one rat is not the problem. He is the bold one, the hungry one. Today you learn how to kill every rat and mouse on your property, safe for your kids and your dog. Stay with me, because by the end of this you will be able to clear every rat and mouse off your own property yourself, for the price of a bucket, without a truck in your driveway, and without a bill that never ends. 1. The trap that works while you sleep. You do not need a truck in your driveway or a locked plastic box bolted to your baseboard wall. You need a 5-gallon bucket, the kind already sitting in your garage from the last time you painted a room, or the kind sold for $2 at any hardware store if you do not have one. Across the top of that bucket goes a bar that spins freely. The old version is a tin can with a wire rod run straight through the center like an axle, laid across the rim so the can hangs in the middle and turns at the smallest touch. A dab of peanut butter goes right in the center of that can. A board leans against the side of the bucket like a ramp, giving a rat a way to climb up from the floor to the rim. That is the whole trap. A bucket, a spinning can, a dab of peanut butter, a ramp. You do not have to buy anything new. That is the whole point of this video. A rat smells that peanut butter from clear across a room. He climbs the ramp, reaches the rim, and steps out onto the can to get to the bait. The moment his weight lands on it, the can spins out from under him and he drops straight into the bucket. The can spins right back to where it started, baited and ready, waiting for the next one. You are not resetting 50 snap traps by hand every morning. You set this once and it works all night on its own, catching rat after rat while you sleep, resetting itself every single time a new rat climbs that ramp. Before you set that bucket, it helps to know exactly what you are dealing with, because a rat and a mouse do not behave the same way, and treating them as one animal costs you time. A mouse is curious almost to a fault. He will explore a new object in his territory within a day or two, sometimes hours, because his instinct pushes him to investigate rather than avoid. A rat is the opposite. He is naturally suspicious of anything new set down in his path, and that caution is often the difference between a bucket that catches something the first night and one that sits untouched for 3 days before it works at all. You can tell which one you are dealing with by what is left behind. Mouse droppings are small, about the size of a grain of rice, scattered loosely wherever he has been feeding. Rat droppings are larger, closer to the size of a raisin, and tend to cluster in the same few spots along his regular path. A mouse can squeeze through a gap the width of a pencil. A rat needs an opening closer to the width of a quarter, though he will chew a smaller gap wider over time if the smell of food on the other side is strong enough. None of this changes the trap or the bait. It changes your patience and your expectations. Set a bucket for a rat and give it those 2 or 3 days of circling before you judge it. Set one for a mouse, and you may see results the same night. Now you have a choice to make, and it depends entirely on what you are dealing with. If the grain in your barn is already getting wet and fouled, if you are watching feed you paid for get eaten and spoiled faster than you can replace it, you cannot afford to wait. Put a few inches of water in the bottom of that bucket. The rat that falls in will not climb back out, and in the morning you have a bucket to empty and nothing left to tend. That is the fast way. When the losses are stacking up against your bottom line every single day the infestation continues, speed matters more than anything else, and there is no version of this where losing more profit is the gentler choice. If it is just one mouse that wandered into your house through the fall, one intruder in your kitchen or your closet, and nothing more, leave the water out. The mouse falls in, cannot climb the smooth plastic walls, and waits there until you carry the bucket well away from your property, a good distance, and let it go. That takes more effort. You have to check the bucket every morning so nothing suffers in there longer than it should. But when the problem is small and contained to a single animal, the gentler way costs you almost nothing extra to choose. Either way, the trap itself never changes. What changes is what waits at the bottom of that bucket, and that decision belongs entirely to what you are actually facing, not to what sounds better on paper. You can buy a ready-made plank that clips onto the rim, built specifically for this exact purpose, for $10 or $15 at most hardware stores. It works exactly the same as the version above, but a can and a length of wire from a drawer you already own will do the identical job for free, and there is no version of this trap that works better just because you paid more for it. Set your bucket tight against a wall, in a corner, along any path where you have already seen droppings or worn tracks. A rat runs the edges of a room, not the open middle. because open ground leaves him exposed, and a wall gives him a line to follow with his whiskers. Set that bucket where he already runs, and he will find it fast. Set it out in the open floor, and he may never find it at all. Give it time before you call it a failure. A rat does not trust anything new set down in his own territory, and it can take him 2 or 3 days circling that bucket before hunger wins out over suspicion. That is not the trap failing. That is just how a wary animal behaves the first week. But the bucket, wet or dry, fast or gentle, only ever clears out the rats you already have. It cannot touch the reason new ones keep arriving behind them, and that reason is sitting somewhere in your own kitchen tonight, doing its work in plain sight without anyone noticing it at all. 2. What is bringing new rats into your kitchen? Sealing every hole in your house feels like solving the problem. It only feels that way. A rat does not move into your house because he likes the company. He moves in because your house is offering him something he cannot survive without, and most people are supplying it without ever realizing it, right up until they patch every hole they can find and still hear scratching in the wall 2 weeks later. The first thing he needs is food, and he will not leave a place that has it. Every bag of feed left open in a barn, every sack of flour or cornmeal or dog food sitting in a plastic tub in your pantry is an open invitation. Plastic means nothing to a rat's teeth. He chews through it the way you would tear through a paper bag, and once he is inside, he has found a food source that never runs out on its own. A rat that finds an easy meal does not leave to look for a harder one somewhere else. He stays, and he brings the rest of the nest along behind him. There is a reason this works so well for him, and it comes down to something most people never think to check. A rat's teeth never stop growing for his entire life. That means he never stops gnawing on wood, on wire, on lead pipe, on the foam insulation wrapped around a hot water line. He is not just eating your feed while he is at it, he is chewing through the wiring behind your walls and the studs holding up your house at the exact same time, and every bit of that damage is happening whether or not you ever catch him in the act. Every bit of feed, every sack of flour or cornmeal needs to go into metal, not plastic. A metal can with a lid that latches shut is something a rat cannot chew through no matter how hungry he gets. If you are feeding chickens or a dog, do not leave the bowl out overnight. Bring it in, sweep up whatever spilled on the floor, and you have taken away the reason he came in the first place. The second thing keeping a nest alive on your property is water, and this is the one that gets missed even more often than the food does. A rat needs to drink, and he needs it regularly, not once a week. A dripping spigot in your yard, a leak under a trough, a puddle that never quite dries out under an air conditioning unit. Any one of these is a standing water source keeping that nest going without you ever noticing it is there. Here is something worth knowing before you go looking for it. A rat can survive for weeks without solid food if he has to, but he cannot last more than a few days without water. Fix the drip, fix the leak, and you have done more to shorten his life on your property than almost anything else on this list. Denying him food and water only closes one door. The other door is the hole he is still using to come and go, and that one takes a different kind of fix entirely. Once you have handled the food and the water, walk your foundation in the daylight and look for the holes. A rat leaves a mark behind him every time he uses the same path, a dark, greasy smudge worn into the edge of a hole from the oil in his fur, rubbing the same spot night after night. Find one of those marks and you have found a rat highway, a route he uses again and again because it has worked for him before. Pack that hole tight with steel wool, or cover it with a piece of hardware cloth, or patch it with sheet metal. Wood, foam, and plastic mean nothing to a rat's teeth, but he cannot chew through steel no matter how long he tries. A rat only needs an opening the width of a quarter to get through, and a mouse needs even less than that, small enough to fit through a gap you could barely slide a pencil into. So when you are walking that foundation, do not skip past a crack just because it looks too small to matter. If a mouse can smell food on the other side of it, size stops being the obstacle you think it is. Here is where most people go wrong, and it is worth being direct about it. Sealing every hole you can find, without also clearing out the rats already inside, does not solve anything. It just makes the ones already living in your walls hungrier in a smaller space, and hungrier rats chew harder and faster to get back out to what they were eating before. Baiting or trapping without sealing anything does the opposite. You clear out what is there today, and a fresh nest moves right back into the same open spot next month. A sealed hole only stays sealed if nothing on the inside is desperate enough to reopen it. Steel wool packed loose gets pulled back out. A patch nailed over rotted wood gets gnawed through from behind where you cannot see it happening. The rats already inside your walls are not going anywhere just because the door closed. They are simply trapped with you now, instead of coming and going freely. And a trapped rat works twice as hard to find a way back to the food he already knows is there. Understanding why that gap matters so much comes down to the biological math of the nest. A single pair of rats, left with consistent access to your grain, can produce a lineage of hundreds in a single calendar year. Every hour spent sealing a hole without active trapping allows that population to double again before the silicone even dries. You are not just fighting an animal, you are fighting a geometric progression that never sleeps. So keep watching, because everything you have built so far only handles what a rat eats and where he gets in. There is still the question of what actually kills him once he takes your bait, and whether that same thing is safe for the dog lying on your porch tonight. Your bucket from before catches what is already inside your walls tonight. The food, the water, and the sealed holes stop new ones from ever replacing them. Do only one of these, and you are managing a rat problem forever. Do both together, and you are ending one. But even once your food is locked away and your holes are packed tight, there is a mixture sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now that can finish what the bucket and the steel wool started, and it will not cost the dog sleeping on your porch a single thing. 3. Why the poison aisle is not the answer. Once your food is locked up and your holes are patched, you still have rats to deal with tonight, and the bucket handles some of them, but not always fast enough for a real infestation. This is where most people reach for the poison aisle, and this is exactly where the real damage starts. Secondary poisoning is a simple thing once someone explains it plainly. A rat eats the poison and does not die right away. He wanders off, weak and slow and easy to catch, and that is exactly the problem. A dog finds him under the porch. A barn cat catches him because a poisoned rat can no longer outrun anything. An owl or a hawk hunting your fields takes him from the air. The poison that killed the rat does not stop with the rat. It travels straight into whatever eats him next, and that includes the very animals doing your rat control for free, and it includes the dog sleeping in your living room tonight. This is not a rare accident. It is the entire design of how that poison works. A rat dies slow enough that something else gets to him first, and once you understand that, you cannot use the poison aisle the same way again. There is a safer path, and it works because of something true about how a rat's body is built that does not apply to almost anything else on your property. A rat cannot vomit. His body has no way to bring anything back up once it goes down. Not gas, not food, nothing. Everything that enters only moves one direction through him. Plain baking soda, the same box sitting by your stove right now, becomes deadly to a rat for exactly this reason. Mixed with food and swallowed, it meets the acid in his stomach and produces gas, the same fizzing reaction you have seen 100 times in a glass of water. He has no way to release that pressure, and that is what ends him. Nothing that travels onward into his blood. Nothing that carries forward into whatever eats him next. This is the part that saves you both the money and the worry at the same time. A dead rat that never poisons a second animal means no vet bill for a dog that got into something it should not have. And a box of baking soda that already lives in your cabinet means no charge for a service call to deliver it. A dog can vomit. A cat can bring it back up. A chicken, a hog, a child, every one of them can pass that same substance through the ordinary way a body handles it. The very thing that kills a rat is harmless to almost everything else standing in your yard, and that is not a trick. That is simply how these two different kinds of bodies are built. Getting the mix right matters more than most people realize. 2 parts baking soda to 1 part cornbread mix, not the half and half most people try first. Too little soda and the rat eats it without any real effect. For mice, work in something sweet, a spoon of honey or syrup, about what you would put on a pancake, because mice have a strong pull toward sugar and will go straight for it. For rats, skip the sweetness entirely and use grease instead, a spoon of bacon grease or beef tallow, sometimes with a bit of cocoa powder mixed in, because rats want richness, not sugar, and the fat smell carries further than anything sweet ever will. There is a reason the two animals need different bait entirely, and it comes down to what each one is built to eat in the wild. A mouse survives mostly on seeds and grain, foods with natural sugar already in them, so sweetness reads to him as safe and familiar. A rat is more of a scavenger, built to eat whatever a farm or a kitchen throws away, and fat reads to him the same way sugar reads to a mouse. Match the wrong bait to the wrong animal, and you can set out a perfectly good mix that simply never gets touched. Set that mixture inside a covered box, not out in the open where your cat could lick it up out of simple curiosity. An old coffee tin with a hole cut for a rat to enter, or a small wooden box with a latch, keeps it dim and dry, and keeps every paw and beak that is not supposed to be in there out of it. If your infestation has gotten past what the pantry mix can handle on its own, there is a second-line answer, the same kind of bait a professional service would use. It works slower, 4 to 6 days, but by the time the rat dies, the substance has mostly cleared his system already, so an owl or a hawk finding him is not taking on much of anything passed forward. If a dog does happen to get into it, there is a plain antidote a vet can give, so it is not without a safety net even in that case. Set your boxes tight against the walls where the rub marks show the most traffic, same as your bucket from before. Put one in the kitchen and one in the bathroom inside the house, since those 2 rooms carry both the food and the water a rat is looking for. A rat does not trust either of these baits right away, and that is worth knowing before you decide they are not working. He is naturally wary of anything new set down in his own territory, and it can take him 2 or 3 days circling a box before hunger finally wins out over suspicion. Do not judge the bait a failure on the first night. Give it the same patience you gave the bucket, and keep a cat if you have one, or get one if you do not. A working barn cat does not need to catch every rat to earn his place. The smell of a cat patrolling that ground alone is often enough to send a rat looking for easier territory somewhere else. An owl nesting nearby does the same work at night from the air, for free, for as long as you let him stay. None of this costs a service contract or a monthly bill. It costs a box of baking soda, a bit of patience, and a cat that already knows its job. Every piece of what has been covered so far, the bucket, the sealed holes, the bait, costs less than a single trip to the grocery store combined. What a professional service charges for the same result is a number most homeowners never actually add up, and once you do, it changes how you look at every bait box on a store shelf. 4. Who profits when your rat problem never ends? Somebody is getting paid every single month your rat problem drags on, and it is not you. A pest control visit runs anywhere from $200 to $400, and that is for a single visit, not a solved problem. The technician sets a locked bait box, and that box needs refilling, so he comes back next month, and the month after that. And every visit is another charge on top of the last one. If that poison actually ended the problem for good the first time, there would be no reason for a contract at all. The entire arrangement depends on the rats coming back. The poison never touches what actually brought the rat there. It kills the rat that eats it, but it does nothing about the open feed sack that drew him in, nothing about the dripping spigot keeping his nest alive, nothing about the hole in your foundation he is still using every night to come and go. The company is not selling an ending, it is selling a monthly management plan for a problem that was never allowed to actually stop. One property learned this the hard way. They called a well-known pest company first, and that company sealed up what they could find, but did not stop the rats. So they called a second company to do more sealing work, and that company did not stop them either. Between the 2 visits and 50 snap traps of their own, they counted 80 mice caught, and they still had rats running their walls when they finally tried something different. 2 professional visits, 2 sealing jobs, and neither one solved anything, because sealing without bait and bait without sealing were always going to be half a fix bought at full price. There is a cost here that never shows up on any invoice, and it matters more than the monthly bill does. A rat gnawing behind a wall is not just noise. His teeth never stop growing, so he never stops chewing, and that includes the wiring running through the walls and the attic above it. A chewed wire is not just a repair bill waiting to happen. It is a fire risk sitting inside a house that most homeowners never think about until an inspector points it out, or worse, until it has already caused damage. There is a health cost as well, one the pest control industry rarely leads with because it does not sell a bigger contract. Rat droppings and urine can carry disease that spreads through dust alone, without ever touching the animal itself. Sweeping up old droppings dry, without wetting them down first, can put that same dust into the air of a closed room. A rat problem left unmanaged for months is not just property damage. It is something a family is breathing around every single day it continues. Compare that to what has been built across the last 3 chapters. A bucket trap made from a 5-gallon pail and a bit of wire, worth about $2 if you already own the bucket. Feed moved into metal containers you likely already own. Steel wool packed into the holes found walking your own foundation. A box of baking soda and a bit of cornbread mixed from your own kitchen, worth less than the cost of a single fast food meal. A cat that already knew its job before you ever thought to ask it. Add up every piece of what has been covered here, and the total cost sits under $20, set against a single professional visit that runs $200 to $400 and solves less of the actual problem than the mix already sitting on the counter. There is no company that can bill monthly for a box of baking soda. There is no contract built around a bucket already sitting in a garage. That is not an accident of pricing. There is simply no profit in something this cheap, so nobody is selling it, and nobody ever will. None of this means the technician showing up at a front door is dishonest. Nobody sat in a room and designed this system on purpose. It is simpler and worse than that. It is just more profitable to manage a rat problem forever than to end it once for $20. And once that shape becomes clear, it cannot be unseen in every bait box on a hardware store shelf. The old way ended a rat problem because nobody was being paid to come back and check on it. Tonight, that same choice is sitting in a kitchen cabinet and a garage, waiting to be used. 5. The kitchen where this started. Picture that same kitchen from the beginning, the one where a wife stood on a chair, pointing at a rat crossing the floor in broad daylight. That moment does not have to happen again. The bucket sitting in the garage right now can be working tonight, resetting itself all night long while the house sleeps, catching whatever is already inside the walls. The feed and the flour sitting in plastic bins can move into metal by this weekend, closing off the meal that has been keeping a nest fed and growing behind those walls. The rub marks along the foundation can be found in one afternoon of daylight and packed tight with steel wool before another rat ever uses that path again. And the baking soda already sitting by the stove can be mixed with a bit of cornbread and grease tonight, doing quietly what no poison from a locked box out back ever could, without risking a dog or the cat that has been earning its keep on the property for free. Every piece of this costs less than $20 combined, set against a company that charges $200 to $400 for a single visit and calls back next month for another one. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between ending a problem and paying to manage one for years. Kids can play in that kitchen. A dog can sleep on that porch. And the only thing crossing that floor at 2 in the morning from now on is the sound of a bucket doing its work quietly in the next room, not a scream from someone standing on a chair. Subscribe if this helped, tap like, and tell us in the comments how bad your rat or mouse problem has gotten, and what you have already tried before finding this.